Hey guys, welcome back to Ed's Garage. Today, starting a new project utilizing some of the battery modules using a battery module from the Chevy Spark electric battery teardown. Pretty excited to get this project underway. As you can see, I've got a couple of battery modules on the desk here, and I just got my my new BMS in from Dally BMS. So the plan is to make a portable battery pack that I can take around with me. I've got my inverter ready to go here as well. It is a cheaper inverter. This is kind of a dual 60 volt output instead of a 120 volt hot and neutral. It has two 60 volt hot lines, which is a little annoying. It means that there's going to be some things that just simply don't work with it. Like I can't charge a car with it. That's too bad, but that's okay. I'm mainly going to be using this for like camping trips and such. So I'll be able to run my I don't see it here, my little electric hot plate off of it if I want to make coffee in the morning or, you know, bacon and eggs or whatever. So it's going to be awesome for that. And one of these modules is perfect. Like it's exactly the right size. It's going to go into a box. I've got a 12 volt adapter here ready to go. So this actually drops the voltage from the 64 or 65 volts of the battery down to 12 volts. And then I can use this for all sorts of other cool things as well. It's 180 watts. So that'll run my big light tower and all sorts of cool stuff. But anyway, so what I'm doing here, I'm going to use the original wiring that plugs right into the module here, and I'm going to connect the BMS to that. So that is actually the BMS wiring from the original Chevy Spark battery pack. I've already got a eyelet crimped onto the BMS, so that of course goes onto the negative side of the module, and then this is going to become the new negative for the battery. So anything that runs off the module here will run off of that. And then the positive side, right? So that and the positive side. But then this connects to all of the individual cells and monitors their voltage. So basically my next step here is to strip down all of these little wires here so that I can connect them all to all of these little stripped down wires. I had to kind of figure out which was which here, which is why it looks like a little Christmas tree. And we've written down every single wire and whatnot and how many volts they're putting out so we can keep track. So basically, this is my guide to make sure that I hook up the BMS correctly. BMS, guys, stands for Battery Management System or Battery Monitoring System. This will essentially allow me to just safely discharge the battery until it gets down to about 10%, and then the BMS will cut it off. It'll also allow me to charge up the battery to like 80, 90, or 100%, whatever I set it to. And what's really cool about this BMS is that it has a little Bluetooth thing that you can connect your phone to, so you can kind of set all the features and whatnot via Bluetooth. The other thing I'm going to need to do is pull off the coolant pipes. There's no need for coolant. We're not going to be drawing that much amperage from this. As you can see, I already did that on this one here. Unfortunately, I can't use this battery. Well, I can use this battery module, but it would require me to solder every single one of these wires on, which I guess it's not that big a deal. It's only 16. But the whole point of these little resistors is to actually help keep this battery at a proper balanced state. Now, this BMS does the same thing. It can also balance the battery, but both those resistors and this BMS do that very slowly. It's not active balancing, it's passive balancing. So essentially what these resistors do is if one cell, at least I believe, if one cell is a little bit higher than the cell next to it, the resistor will kind of balance out those two, and then it kind of goes across. Some sort of same idea with the BMS here. It's passive balancing. So with the two together, hopefully they balance a little bit quicker. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and connect all these wires up. And to do that, I'm going to use these little heat shrink tubing solder connector things. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. I don't know if they have a name necessarily. But they have a little bit of solder in the middle, so when you heat them up, that solder melts and gives it a pretty good connection. So, I've got 16 of them to do, so, well, 17, so here we go. All right, as you can see, I've got every single wire connected up now. So now, it's just a matter of testing this port here before I actually plug this into the BMS. I want to make sure that it's the right voltage all the way across the board. So essentially what it's doing is it's going to build up each wire here is going to be 4 volts higher than the last, and that's how the BMS knows the difference between each individual battery cell. So there we go, that's 4 volts, that's 8 volts, plug it in here too, 12 volts, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 48, 52, 56, 60, and 64. Perfect. So now, because I know that each wire here is a sequential 4 volts up, just keep in mind that each one of these cells is charged to 4 volts each right now, I can go ahead and plug in this BMS and not have to worry about damaging it. But the first thing I'm going to do is connect up the blue wire to the negative battery terminal. So that is battery negative. So I'm going to go ahead and connect that up. Accidentally hit that other battery there. Okay, so this lead coming off is a temperature sensor, so I can put that where the old temperature sensor is, or I can even possibly run the new temperature sensor directly to it, but I'm going to use the new one here. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and plug this in though and hope that it doesn't release the blue smoke. So let's connect that up. There we go. And our Bluetooth module, just so we can test everything. There we go. All right, so all of these wires coming off, I've used the existing wiring bit that's connected to the top of the module, running to the BMS. And then I've got our negative port connected up there. So I should now get 60 volts from this from this positive terminal to this new negative terminal. But first I got to test the battery, or the BMS. All right, so now that I got the BMS all completely hooked up, let me show you what I've got going here. This is just a quick bench test to make sure that everything is working properly. So I ran out of proper tape, so you can see everything's kind of held down with some masking tape at the moment. That's okay. I got the BMS secured to the top of the battery pack, and I've got the temperature line running into the actual spot that the old temperature line was. I've removed all of those hoses and pipes and the big connector thing that was on the side there. The BMS is reading everything properly still through this existing wiring harness. I have the BMS also connected to the negative battery terminal here, and I'm using this spare post on this side. So basically the back side of the module, these sides here actually have nothing connected to them. They're just posts, and it makes it a perfect spot to connect other things such as my power inverter. So I have a 60 volt to 100 volt power inverter here. It's capable of pulling up to about 75 volts. So you can see on the display here, it's currently reading 63.8 volts from the battery pack, which is accurate. This battery pack is capable of being charged up to 67, so I'm only going to go maximum 64, which is about 96%. I'm not really too concerned about the overall longevity of these modules, but I might back that off to 80%. But anyway, if we have a look here, it's currently drawing 0 watts, and we're providing 121 volts. It's 35 degrees Celsius apparently inside the box here, and it's providing 60 hertz, which is pretty cool. And I've got my little cooktop here ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and crank that up and see what sort of wattage it pulls. You can see there, just about 1100 watts. Oh, just over 1100 watts now. Right on. So this is working. Let's see how hot this gets now. Woo! Yep, it's working. All right, so it's pulling that through this very sketchy little adapter plug that I had to make because there's no ground pin on here. There should be a little ground hole, but of course an inverter can't really be grounded unless you add a ground to it. So yeah, this is going to be ungrounded. But you know what? I accept the risks. 120 volts is not that much anyway. Anyway, yeah, ignore what I just said. So you can see I've got basically no ground here. Yeah, whatever. What I'll probably do is, so I'm not going to use these existing plugs. When I actually put the box together, I'm going to have a proper 3-prong power outlet, and then I'll have a ground strap that I can drive into the ground with a spike to give me an actual ground. So that's the plan anyway. At least then everything that I use will be grounded. The other thing I'm a little worried about, turn this off here because it's clearly working. It's getting boiling hot already. The other thing I'm a little bit worried about on this inverter is there is a USB port here, right there. I need to make sure that that's actually outputting a proper 5 volts because this side here has a 12 volt outlet, but it's outputting 60 volts because it's just pulling in the 60 volts directly from the battery. So this is just outputting whatever the battery is getting. Same with these little 2 DC jacks. So I will not be using this. I'm probably going to pull that port out and then connect it to my 60 to 12 volt buck converter there so that I can actually continue to use that. So anyway, it looks like it's all working great. So now it's just a matter of starting the box that this will go into, cleaning this up a little bit better. So the thing to remember when doing a project like this is to make sure that your BMS actually has enough throughput capability. This is a 16S obviously battery, 60 volts BMS at 40 amps max. So this doesn't draw 40 amps. Basically this is capable of outputting a maximum of about 1500 watts, a surge of about 3000 watts. So 60 times 40 really is only a maximum of 2400 watts. So I need to make sure that I don't exceed a draw of 2400 watts because that will just trip the BMS. I don't see going above the sort of, constant capability of this inverter, which is 1500 watts anyway. But I guess I'll have a surge capability of 2400 watts, absolutely maximum drawing from or through this BMS. Ultimately, the inverter can handle up to 3000 just for a moment. The BMS can only handle up to 2400. So just got to keep that in mind. Maybe I'll put a little logo or a little diagram beside the outlet to just let anyone know who's plugging stuff into it what its maximum capabilities are. Just found the perfect little adapter to test the output of these USB ports. This is from my battery tester, so not from a multimeter. It's multimeter. It's from a battery load tester that I have. So this is going to be perfect. I just need to plug it in. Oh, by the way, there is a little light on this thing as well. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit awkward. You know what? Let's set the camera up. And we're getting, perfect, 5 volts. So that's actually 100% accurate. That's what that USB port needs to output. So that's great. So I think what I'm going to do for now is just to make a temporary enclosure for this, just using plywood. And then I'll probably just screw this to the top of the enclosure. And then eventually, that way at least I can use it this weekend for an upcoming camping trip. And then eventually I'll, make an actual proper enclosure. All right, quick update. Here's what I got so far. So I've got a nice solid, about a 1-inch thick base. It's just 2 pieces of plywood. You can see what I've done here. I've kind of latched the bottom of the battery. I'm going to put another one on this side now. That side's going to stay glued on. This side is going to be just screwed on, but in multiple places to hold the battery down. Now, the reason I'm not gluing this side down is in case I ever need to take the battery module out. So that's the next bit. Put that on, and then I'll start building the structure around it. All right, quick update. I've done a bunch of stuff. Check this out. So I've got all my sides up. Battery is mounted securely. I've got my 60 volt down to 12 volt buck converter there. I've got some wiring all hooked up. These two wires are ready to go through that little hole so that the inverter can sit on top. And I've got that 12 volt port removed out of the inverter so I can use it here. And I got a USB port there. So yeah, things are moving along. All right, there it is. It's temporary, but it'll do. We've got power coming in here. We've got power coming into these two. And yeah, this is 2.4 kilowatt hours now. Well, maybe 2.3 because the battery's at about 96%. Yeah, going to take this camping. We've also got a little USB there and a light, so that's kind of cool. Going to take this camping, see how it goes. I'll probably add some handles and some feet for the trip. That should only take a few minutes, so there we go. Yeah, stay tuned for finishing this off. All right, we're up here camping in the middle of nowhere in Squamish, and I figured we'd put the battery to the test, so I'll show you what we got going here. All right, so boiling up some coffee in the percolator and charging a Baofeng radio. Currently pulling in, not sure if you can see that, 1100 watts. I'm also running the fridge off of it as well. So fridge actually ran off that all night, and we only lost about 2%. So that's pretty cool. I also had another radio charging overnight as well, and my phone. So yeah, it's super handy so far. All right, guys. I realized I was doing a bunch of work on this and not videotaping it. So I'm back at it today. I figured I'd give you a quick update. So I have removed the top part here and disassembled the inverter because I am now installing, or have just installed, some nice weather-tight power outlets. This is kind of cool here. So these are kind of nice. I got these on I got this on Amazon. It's kind of weird though. It stays open this far and then shuts, but it doesn't stay open this far. You have to hold it open while you plug something into it. That could be a little bit annoying, so I might just have to pack like a little short extension cord or whatever. But yeah, I'm using some actual proper house wiring there. As you can see, I didn't put a box in there because it wouldn't fit. But that should be all right. I'm gonna probably stuff some rock wool down in beside the battery once this is all done, just to act as like just a barrier. Rock wool is fire retardant, so not that I'm really too concerned about things going up in flames, but maybe a little bit. I've also made a charging port, so this is 3D printed, and you can see basically what I did was I took the plug-in off of an old external hard drive. This is technically rated for 120 volt 15 amp, but it's only going to pull 60 volts and 10 amps. And you can see my 3D printed design has a little loop on it, and then this cap has a little hole because there's going to be a string in there with a knot that'll go through the hole and then tied onto that loop. So when you're not using the charger, you can put the cap on, and when you want to take it off, it'll just kind of dangle there below. So that is going to go right there, like that. So it'll be a nice spot for charging. And then, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what I'll have here yet. Maybe a display of some sort. Yeah, I also still have to redo some of this tape job here with something a little bit more permanent. But anyway, that's where we're at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and wire that up. All right, little update here. As you can see, I've got the charger plugged in. Got it going into the 60 volt input there. Got my little string hanging onto the cap. So that looks nice. I have wired up the wireless charger. So the way that I did that is I just kind of bridged it off of the wires going to the 12 volt outlet here. Funny thing is it says 24 volts on it. Not sure why. But yeah, so I'm going to kind of move this out of the way a little bit here. So you can see I've got that heavy duty line running up and directly into the inverter. And that is going to the outlet there. The charger is just connecting directly to the battery and then to the BMS on that side over there. I'm trying to keep all the wiring as neat and tidy as possible. Of course, the more that I add to it, the more wiring is going to be here. Yeah, this is just a USB-C port right here that's just directly connected to 12 volts. It's got its own little built-in fuse inside there. Not that I'm worried about it, but because the 12 volt buck converter also has a fuse connected to it. So next steps are to kind of clean up this top end a little bit. So right now, you know, I have the inverter kind of just sitting here, and there's a little screen in it. I'm going to keep the box on the inverter, and I'm going to tape up these ports here. I'm going to take the screen out and probably mount it to a 3D printed enclosure that sits on top of here. This will also be on the 3D printed enclosure. Excuse me. The other thought is I may actually just have the 3D printed enclosure kind of come up to cover this mess, have its own little fan in here that kind of pushes air into the inverter, and then another section that allows it out. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do that yet. I don't think I'm really too worried about losing the fan here, the light, just because it's such a tiny light anyway, so it doesn't really bother me that it's there. But yeah, I'm going to leave that for now, and then we'll come back to it once I've got some more parts. Then, of course, I'm going to need to pull everything off again, sand it all down, round off the corners, and give it a good spray with some heavy-duty paint. I'm thinking probably some bed liner or something like that that'll cover up a lot of the imperfections. Also need to put a couple of wheels on there and an extendable handle that I can use to kind of drag this thing around. So a few more add-ons, and then I'll total everything up to see how much it all costs. But I'd say pretty cool little thing I got going here so far. All right, quick update, see where we're at here, guys. All right, so what I've got, I think you saw me install this already, yeah. So I've added an additional USB port down at the bottom here. That was actually the one that was on the side of the inverter. As you can see, I've started the housing around the inverter. I've got the power switch for the inverter here, separate. I have the screen for the inverter, and I have the, where is it? The cable for the thing that I can't find. Oh, there it is. The Bluetooth module. So here's what I need to do. I need to make a panel that can fit over top of this. I'm also going to close up all of these gaps in the sides of the inverter, with the exception of the airflow gaps. So there's airflow on the side there and airflow on the side there. I'm going to put venting in the back of this piece, and I'm going to put a little tube right here for fresh air. Tube right here for blowing out the hot air, because the fresh air is going to come in through the back, go around, and then into this little hole here. This is where the fan is. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to have the fan and the air intake for the inverter far enough away from where the air comes in from outside. That way, if it does start raining, water won't, make its way all the way into the inverter. It might get a little bit of a misting, but shouldn't be enough to harm the inverter. But if the fan was right on the outside, then any droplets that passed it would get sucked into the inverter and blown right in there. I don't want that. So I might even put maybe a little sponge or something in there just to kind of filter out any particulates, maybe like a little filter or something like that. But yeah, so that's the plan anyway. So put a vent in the back there. Should be enough room for water, for air to get in and then around the inverter. And then I'm going to 3D print something that kind of screws onto here and then goes through like a tube. And it's going to have like little vent lines and stuff like that. And the reason for that is because I just want the hot air to go straight out the back. I don't want it to get trapped inside of here. I'm also going to 3D print the piece that goes over here. And the reason for that is so that I can have my wireless charger kind of built into that panel. I'm going to have the screen built into that panel. I'm going to have the switch here. This is a Bluetooth receiver, but there's also a button on it. This can't be allowed to get wet either, so haven't figured that out yet. And then I've got the button to turn on and off the inverter, so that's going to be mounted there somewhere. That also shouldn't get wet, now that I think about it. This I can seal up pretty easily because I'll just put some silicone around the edge of it or something like that, or maybe silicone in a small window or something like that with some plexiglass. This is going to be mostly under the 3D printed plastic, so it won't get wet. So really the only thing to figure out is how to keep this dry and how to keep this dry. I think I might need to maybe make a removable cap. I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But yeah, things are moving along pretty well. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to print some straps that kind of go across here. The reason I'm going to print it is because it's kind of a unique size and shape. Unless I can find something, I might even just use a piece of wood or something, but I want to have the strap that kind of covers this edge up because it's pretty smooth, but it's not perfect. Once this piece is put into place with the screws, it does line up a little bit better though. And once all of that's done, then I still need to paint it. So that's where we're at for now. I'll see you at the next update. Okay, the build is completely done now. Since the last clip there, I did add a couple of things. I'm going to show you that real quick. But first, a couple of specs. So this is a 2.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. It weighs 73 pounds, which is just a hair more than an equivalent like Anker product. For instance, the Anker 2 kilowatt hour is about 68 pounds. So it's a little bit more than that. But this has a little bit more capacity, so that's kind of cool. It charges at about 600 watts. That's also pretty good. So it can charge it up very, very quickly. And it can discharge basically up to, well, I can do 1500 watts continuous on the inverter. And as far as the 12 volt ports, I've got about 150 watts of constant 12 volt output. Of course, both of those can surge a little higher when necessary. Now, a couple things that I've added here. Before I paint it, I just want to go over a couple things with you here. So I've added a flashlight. Now, I actually designed and printed this flashlight using my 3D printer. Sorry. Bye. Now, you might notice some of these components look familiar. So this is the flashlight that came off of the inverter and the power button that came off the inverter. I got some magnets in there and I put this little strip right here. This is actually from a computer. It's from a desktop computer. It's one of those cutouts for the rear input-output part of the tower. But anyway, so I just kind of used some adhesive on that and now I can stick that there. And of course, when I want to use this, I can also hang on things. And I can also do that. So I have some lighting around the area, which is cool. But what's really nice about this flashlight is this. Check this out. So this is all 3D printed. Now, if I pop the cover off here, there's the cover. It has a 18650 battery in it. I can just pop that out real quick. There we go. So as you can see, I bought some little electrical contacts to stick in there. And it's a very, very simple device. But the cool thing is that the other side of the battery box actually has an 18650 charger on it. So I can carry basically two 18650 batteries, one in the flashlight, one right here, ready to go for when the battery in the flashlight dies. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all the functionality I'm going to be putting into this. I mean, we've got the flashlight, we've got the Bluetooth connectivity, we've got the wireless charger, we've got the inverter with up to 1500 watts of continuous output. Nice little screen to show us our battery level when the inverter's on, and of course I can access that with Bluetooth as well with the smart BMS app. Cool little charger here. Got some good grab handles, got some ventilation on the side and on the back as well. And then we've got two USB ports backlit in red there, three USB ports, one of them's USB-C, backlit in green, and a 12-volt port as well. Now, I was thinking of putting some wheels on there with little extendable handles so I could actually drag this thing along the ground, because 73 pounds, you know, moving that around it's a bit of a lugging beast. But I realized that most of what I'm using this for is when I'm off-grid camping. So I'm out in the backcountry, and I would need some, you know, air-filled tires, and they'd have to be pretty large in order to, you know, sort of roll it around on the ground where I'm taking it. So that's not really ideal. But anyway, so I'm going to leave that, and that would just add weight anyway. So I can carry this around for now, and most of the time it's going to stay in the truck anyway. So next step with this is to basically, I'm going to need to punch in some of these smaller nails. I'm going to have to countersink some of the screws. The screws around here, I'm not going to worry about, because I'm still going to put that sort of strip around it to hide some of that. Total cost so far. So obviously the battery was free because I reused something that was going to be recycled. But all of the parts, including the inverter and everything you see here, $384. That's what I've spent with taxes. So that's pretty good, considering the a 2 kilowatt hour Anchor battery is $1,700. I figure $384 it's a good savings, good way to use those battery packs. All right, but yeah, let's get started here cleaning this up, and we'll go from there. Safety squints weren't working. Safety second. Done, finally. I've reinstalled all the other hardware back onto it, and actually I'm pretty proud of myself here, because I finally managed to find a purpose for this self-adhering stick-on chrome strip crap that I bought when I thought chrome was cool on cars way back when I was young. That stuff's easily 20 years old. Wait, no, I would have been 14, so that doesn't work. That stuff's easily 15 years old. Anyway, found a use for it. So rather than 3D print off a bunch of strips, I just put 2 strips all the way around. I think it looks quite sharp. It almost looks like a like a ye olde refrigerator or something. Paint job turned out really, really nice. Still got some brush stroke lines in there, but that's okay. I don't want this thing to look like I bought it. I want it to look like I built it. Everything works great. Tested it out again. All the ports are functional. I did move the red one up one notch for reasons. But yeah, everything is done and all works great. So, guys, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have any questions about the build or any suggestions for things I can add to it. I was thinking maybe a little tray at the top here. I might 3D print a little tray, a little organizer, just for little knickknacks when, you know, this is sitting on the table outside of the campsite. Might be a good place to just store some stuff temporarily. But yeah, I'm super excited about it. So thank you again for watching, and till the next time, take care.